A lifetime of hard work, children laughing in the kitchen, family photos on a restaurant wall, a legacy that lives on. It all comes from the power of a conversation, like the one Tommy Hall had with First Horizon Bank about taking over his father's Charleston-based restaurant business. Now the table is set for a whole new generation. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Tommy. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
In today's episode, we're going to talk about reality TV, the golden age of hip-hop, and even do an impromptu sports radio host audition. If that seems like an odd variety, it is. Today's guest has been in 137 episodes of the reality TV show Love and Hip Hop, was a senior marketing executive of Bad Boy Entertainment in its heyday, and even played some ball at Vanderbilt. We are talking about none other than Rich Dollaz. What has changed in reality TV over the past 15 years? How did Bad Boy cross cultural barriers to succeed? Does Rich have what it takes to go head-to-head with home team Brandon Leak in Talking Atlanta Sports? We'll find out all that and more today on the Marketing Madmen podcast.
They say marketing is a madman's game. So now we turn it over to the Marketing Madmen with Nick Constantino and Trip Job.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here. And, we've had some fun the last few weeks, and I think today we're going to continue having fun, but we're going to go in a little different direction.
Yeah, we are.
A little,
lots of different directions.
Pop culture today, and how pop culture ties into marketing, which, there's a whole bunch of things that are going on, and a lot of them are not my expertise. I think we all know my opinion of TikTok, but I think we're going to get into things like that today.
I think that's got to be the next promo video. I think we got to get you doing a TikTok video for the Marketing Madmen. I think that's got to be the next promo video. So we are, honestly, we're happy. I got my boy here, Rich Dollaz. I don't even want to list all the stuff. Love and Hip Hop, how many, what are you on, 18, 20 seasons now?
Yeah.
20 seasons?
Yeah, something like that. Like, let's say 11 New York, 3 Atlanta, 2 Atlanta. So what does that equal? 11, 13, 14, 16.
16 seasons. Also was the senior director of marketing for Bad Boy Entertainment, which was just a huge part of my life growing up in Queens and in New York. And I saw that thing from the beginning to end, man. I remember back in the day when Diddy was singing on, I don't even remember the reggae bands. The first track he was ever on, he tried to do that fake Jamaican accent on that track. I remember that. I remember it all the way through. I've heard all the stories about Biggie coming in and doing the Juicy freestyle. I mean, you name it, I've heard those stories. So that's going to be fun. But also played some ball at Vanderbilt, played basketball at Vanderbilt.
I played little hoops.
Which is fantastic. So we got the sports tie-in, we got the entertainment tie-in, and we got the hip-hop tie-in.
Right, and how do you run businesses that way, and how do you use that those markets to attract people? And that's I think you've probably run the gamut of people you're thinking about in your marketing days of how do you help these properties and the sponsors in those areas
for sure. And I wonder about reality TV too, like more of how they market reality TV. Because man, oh man, has that been? You went from like the real world to what are there probably now? What would you bet? How many different shows are being executed at a time in the reality space?
Now with the streaming platforms, now you have hundreds. Yeah. You might have thousands.
All going at the same time on these different channels, and relative to sitcoms and stuff, they're relatively cheap to make. It's a contained environment, and that's why they put them on TV. And then if you catch a viral one, man, that IP lasts forever. You spin it off in 16 different directions. Exactly. So I think that's great, and I think we start there. Let's talk a little bit about that. Okay. So Rich, tell me about, and again, a lot of this is you can't share a lot of the stuff. What you're filming, and I go, tell me what the typical filming is like. Tell me when they bring you in, they give you the plot lines. Tell me what's going on with that filming, because I know you disappear for like weeks at a time. You can't be reached. It's like completely desert island. So talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to talk about how they market those shows.
Well, originally, when the way the reality the format was set up was that you did an interview and you basically told them your life. And then they drew connections and parallels with other people in your life. So just remember that whatever you say today is what's going to be on television tomorrow. So if me and Nick are having a conversation and I say something negative, you're going to hear that. Yeah. It's going to get back to you, and then that's how the drama
And they're going to play it in the worst part. They're going to play it with the most drama around it, and just when you're on the lowest, they give you a knockout blow.
Exactly. No context, no nothing.
Yeah, I see the drama building already.
You're moving forward into that, and now you have the drama and everything ensues after that, and now you have reality television because you're, like you say, you're getting people at their lowest moments.
They're filling those plot lines.
But it's all emotional. I mean, you're trying to build the emotional connection.
Correct.
Yeah. For better or worse.
For better or worse. And as long as the way it used to be, not so much anymore, but there were stakes. There was problems. Problems lead to stakes. Stakes lead to resolution.
Sure.
And as long as there was resolution, then you were fine.
Right.
Because by
you
the
built
end of
the
season,
drama to that point, and then all of a sudden you had it, but you culminated at some point where you got to your resolution.
You resolve the issues. And then that's how it used to be, but not so much anymore, man.
No, because they want to keep you on a cliffhanger the next season, right?
Goodness,
that's the cliffhanger. That's like that
crazy.
Game of Thrones cliffhanger. They always got to get you to the next episode.
Yep. And it's ridiculous. It's actually, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
Honestly, it really isn't healthy to harbor those type of things and to have to live your life based on somebody else's schedule.
Yeah, and I think it's also the way it's promoted and the way it's advertised. You're feeding into people who probably think this is a little more real than it is to their own life, right? Like that drama, they feel like they're a part of it. And it's like, yo, you live your life. This is supposed to be the entertainment part of it. You don't have to be that invested that this is hurting you.
This should be the escape, and it's becoming the reality.
It's becoming
of
the
it.
reality.
Yeah,
because people. That's what made reality television so popular is that people could. They looked at the television screen and they saw themselves in these issues. They saw themselves like my boyfriend cheated on me, or we had issues, or this woman said this about me, and they saw themselves, so they were able to look in the mirror. And that's what made it hit home, and it was so realistic.
I feel you also manifest the worst parts, though, because what you're looking for, when you're looking for shit, you're going to find it.
Yes.
When you're looking for stuff, you're going to find it, right? Whenever you look inward, it's like I always say, like you have a girlfriend who's snooping on your computer, she's going to find something. She's going to find something because she's looking. So it's the same thing. It manifests the wrong things. So what about the marketing of it? Obviously, from when it started really going viral, I remember I had a buddy when I lived in Vegas who was on Real World Seattle. Like that was one of the initial stages, and he actually got caught up in some controversy for having an affair with the producer. My buddy Dave Burns, it's a story. And actually, we'll get him on one day because he has a trip. But I remember it was early. We were out drinking one night, partying. We're at his house, and he starts dying of laughter. He goes, "I want to show you something." And he goes into a safe and pulls out a residual check. And it's like for 86 cents on the Real World, right? Think about those days to now where some of these things, people rewatch these things. How are they marketing it? Who's the audience? Who are they going after? Go back to your bad boy marketing days. Tell me a little bit about how the marketing of the shows has changed.
The marketing, marketing has changed with society. With the emergence of social media, marketing is a whole different platform now. It's a whole different mindset. When reality television first started, especially Real World was a little bit different. You had these white kids that were going down to the shore, and they were partying and drinking, and it was kind of fun. Love and Hip Hop got dark. Yeah, it showed the other side of it. So the nascent stages, it was difficult for us to get marketing. So if you looked at the television screen in 2011, you wouldn't see Pepsi, Coca-Cola,
and you
McDonald's.
say dark,
well,
but you mean real.
And you were still back in those days when those started and Survivor started. It was still more of a mass media,
correct?
Right. I mean, look, there was target markets, the young adults, et cetera, but it wasn't niche and super niche.
Absolutely
to me,
not.
Now that's where reality has become over the last.
Everything, though. That's why there's 400 channels and 800 streaming services because everyone's getting niche.
You're going after a niche now.
Yep.
So,
and you can find, and the crazy thing is that now, back in the day, coming from the music industry, there were three popular genres of music before you went to the adult contemporary on the pop side. So you had urban, you had rhythm, and you had pop. Those were your three. So those were the three things that you catered to in the music industry.
Sure.
Urban was your hip hop, R&B.
Sure.
Rhythm was more of your middle of the road California style music, Rihanna, stuff like that. And then obviously pop is your John Mayers, your Britney Spears.
And those started about the 90s when that started blending a lot also. That was the crossover from hip hop to when you had that crossover.
Exactly.
Because you say Rihanna can be a million ways. You could perceive her as XYZ.
Exactly.
West Coast, even Dre started going a little, you don't want to say pop because they'll jump out of the screen and choke me if I say that.
Exactly.
But they all started blending.
Because it was the internet. And then you started having middle America, white kids, who were finding this East Coast, West Coast music and attaching themselves to it.
Well, that's when you started to get the duos, the combinations, where Justin Timberlake, you mentioned Britney, and some of them started to having, these compilations and these songs with,
because
some from the hip-hop world.
They saw the importance of now we have to put these two things together.
Yeah, and it started earlier, right? I mean, I know Blondie with you had all those things. You had all those things started, and you had you had Aerosmith, and you had Run DMC. Those things were all starting, but they But I understand what you're saying. The internet made that widely available to everybody because
there was no more genres.
In the early '90s, you don't imagine many white mothers in the suburbs saying you can watch BET. Like it just didn't. It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. So I remember my mother when I moved from Queens. No, I was still in Queens, and she found my first CD, and it was Onyx, and she was not happy with me. Now I'm not going to say the titles of the songs that were on that, but they are not titles that 10-year-old Nick should have been listening to. Let's leave it at that. But the internet made it all of a sudden. Now I'm downloading whatever I want. I have access to whatever I want, so I see that blend. So you said earlier that Love and Hip Hop got dark. By dark, do you mean real? Do you mean it just got real? You see the real parts, because again, you can glorify the partying, that's easy. But when you start talking about real relationships, the dark could just mean the reality. Were they just harping on the darkness, or and that's why advertisers couldn't take it, or was it just the first time that you said something that was so real?
It was the first time that something that was said was so real, and that was the premise of tomorrow's situation. So it didn't get better. It didn't get better until it got better. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Completely.
So it was dark until it wasn't. And when you're watching that and you're going 6-7 episodes of darkness out of a 12-episode season, it wasn't enough happiness to sustain the marketing until,
understood.
Like you said.
I was going to say, were there targets that you could try to find sponsors that fit for that, or was it still hard because companies didn't want to get that deep in the darkness?
Companies didn't want to get that deep in the darkness, and you dealt with urban more so than
let's call it what it is. There's not as much diversion and inclusion. That stuff didn't exist then. It was something no one wanted to touch until you, like you said, that crossover started to begin to happen in the mid '90s, when all of a sudden now you saw those crossovers coming in every direction. I mean, you had very few brands that were engaged in, let's call it urban. I hate freaking saying that word, in African American culture. Yeah, you had very few that were really there. And again, I grew up. I remember for me it was Carl Kanai, and it was Pele Pele, Mark Buchanan. Those were brands, and even I was wearing. And again, I can look Puerto Rican if I need to, so I can get away with it. But my friends, most of my friends, not so much. But dude, that makes a ton of sense. And like, let's say what it is, man. I mean, as it evolved, now that is so much more a part of culture. So I have to imagine that's where the marketing has changed now, and now it's been more embraced by a lot of these brands.
Absolutely.
Product placement, stuff like that is happening.
Everybody understands the power of the dollar, and the internet has created a place in where I guess marketeers are safe in going to the left and to the right and being able to do everything in the middle, because there really is a market for everyone now. And there's no wrong way to do this anymore.
Well, and I think that's a neat point. And I think when we come back from the break, I want to go from the dark maybe into the light. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about the 50th anniversary of hip-hop. And we'll do that when we come back from the break, because we are the Marketing Madmen, and you're listening on Extra 106.3.
Let me go get my camera real fast. Yeah. What do they call?
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back, Trip Job and Nick Constantino here on the Marketing Madmen with Nick's longtime friend, Rich Dollaz, and we were talking about reality TV, and we kind of merged into hip hop, and that's a little bit of your background, and it's also very timely. I mean, I think there's been a lot of play about 50th anniversary of hip hop, and why don't you tell us, Rich, a little bit what that means to you and what you remember first, and then we'll get into your background a little bit.
Well, obviously, I grew up on hip hop. I grew up on the sound. I'm from a New York City guy. I'm from Harlem, USA. I grew up in this hip hop world. I grew up. Kool Herc in the Bronx was like, I guess, 40 blocks from me.
And that was the origin.
That was the origin. The Bronx, New York, Kool Herc in the park, and then after that came the African Bambadas, and then obviously the LL Cool J's and the KRS-Ones, and we can go on and on and on.
Got to throw the Beastie Boys in there. That tracks back to the 80s, and Def Jam was almost started because of the Beastie Boys, so we got to throw them in there.
They were yes. Yep. Lyor Cohen in the Beastie Boys, and that's the Run DMC and the Russell Simmons era. So I grew up in that, and being a New Yorker, that was the prevalent music in my in my world. Like special ed used to come to my high school and hit on the chicks. Like it was crazy like that. So, and then being able to work at Bad Boy was amazing, because now you're working with probably, because this is a marketing show, probably the best marketer in the history of hip hop.
Yeah, and you talk about that crossover to that mainstream. I would actually say above anyone else, because when it first started, even Rockefeller, they were trying to avoid that like the plague. They didn't want that crossover.
Yes.
When you took it, and this is such a cliche thing to say, but when Diddy took that juicy beat from that commercial and put that over the track to make that radio friendly, that fundamentally changed where the music would go. It made it, mainstream's not the word, but it made it palatable to a new audience. You had Dre out on the West Coast. It was so gangster rap. It was so not in your face that it wasn't that mainstream appeal. It was Diddy in the 90s, and it started with the idea, and then it became the marketing, but how they brought it out and decided to embrace that while still trying to keep the street, cred, because that was really important. I mean, you had to keep, and that's, I mean, you didn't have more street cred than Biggie. I mean, those guys, the guys he found the perfect vessel for what he was trying to accomplish. So I love that. But talk about the inner workings of it. Talk about, you were senior director of marketing, man. You were involved in everything. Talk about how they would promote albums. Talk about how they would promote record labels and Sean John. All these things were blending together at that time.
I'll give you the biggest. Nobody really is familiar with this, but the biggest marketing that we ever did at Bad Boy was the Big Mac. So it was Biggie's album, Ready to Die, was coming out, and Craig Mack.
Oh, dude, the remix, the remix of Flavor in Your Ear with Biggie on it when he opens that track. And you got LL on that track. Oh,
exactly.
Dude.
And that was our marketing campaign. We called it the Big Mac.
Biggie and Craig Mack.
McDonald's got behind it, and it was insane.
Get out of here.
McDonald's got behind it.
I do remember that.
That was 93, 94?
That was 94.
That was 95. A turn for McDonald's, too.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Took McDonald's and put them in the urban market.
Yeah.
I mean,
it opened up a huge avenue for them.
Yes.
I mean, it was...
and then our biggest record was obviously the Biggie tribute. That was a Sting record, right?
Yeah.
Faith Evans singing the Sting record.
Yeah.
So Puff was able to see. He had the foresight to see things that we can still do today. Back then.
Yeah.
So he was really, really ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Jay-Z was always an artist.
Right.
Puff was always a marketer.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that that's the difference between the two. That's why Puff could sell Sean John like no other. Jay-Z couldn't sell Rockaware like that.
No. Ciroc,
Ciroc is a whole other animal.
All those things.
So one of the things, and I heard this quote the other day, and I loved it, so I knew I was going to steal it. But it sounds like Puff, had that vision, that strategy, versus, and this is what I heard, was people who just do random acts of marketing. And that's what we see, unfortunately, too much. Just people are throwing crap out there because they don't understand it, tactics, and this idea. I loved it. Random acts of marketing is what we have to get away from.
I think, ironically, it was easier for Jay-Z to follow Puff's trail and become a marketer than it was for Puff to become a rapper, because he tried, and God bless the guy, honestly, but he failed almost every time. It was just not in his cards to be that rapper. Same thing. They say the same thing about Kanye West, mega producer, but the rap game, it was just so it's these people. So, but it's easier to pick up marketing techniques. Rockefeller eventually became good marketers. Man, what that guy's been able to build and do after now
is. Because, see, the thing about Jay is Jay also followed his popularity. Jay got the president's job at Def Jam, and I think it was 06. Never looked back from there.
Right.
Because now he created it. Jay-Z was smart enough to create a team of people that are amazing. And then obviously having Beyonce, who's probably the most marketable person in the world right now. Right. As your wife doesn't hurt.
Right, and that's probably the opposite of Puff. He was a little bit more of a control freak, right? On everything, he wanted control. And look, let's throw these stories out. He used to commute from New York to D.C. like 3 hours. He was like he was driven to accomplish these things.
In the beginning days when Puff first started, previous Uptown Records was before Bad Boy. So Puff was actually working with Clive Davis at Arista. Yeah. And he was interning at Arista, and then that's when he was going from Howard University to New York City. On the train 3 days a week, taking that 3-hour trip on the train on the Amtrak up 95.
Oh man! So, and you mentioned something important, because I've only been once, and it was way back in the day, and I should not have been here. But there's nothing quite on earth like Howard Homecoming back in the day. That was, and I went to University of Maryland. I was right there.
Oh,
I was right there. I was right there. And again, that ability to all of a sudden become Puerto Rican was very convenient in that moment. But that dude, Howard Homecoming was like anything I've ever seen in my life.
And we threw the biggest party down there for years. Puff threw the biggest party.
He had to, right? You're talking alma mater, you're talking his spot. Talk about that stuff without revealing too much information that's not safe for radio. Talk about those days. Talk about, because it was so sexy and big at that point. Talk about the parties. Talk about the stuff.
I've had 3 different lives, and I tell people this all the time. I had the college life. I pledged. I played ball. I had a great time. Then I moved into Bad Boy. That was another world for me, being able to be around this guy for 10 years.
Wow.
For 10 years, right? So the parties, and then Puff was able to create. Puff could do something that nobody else could do. And I call him Puff. Everybody else calls him Diddy. I'm stuck on the Puff. Yeah. That's what we've always called him.
He was Puff before he was Diddy, for sure.
So he was able to make everything so cool. Like, that was his
superpower.
His superpower gift was being able to make things so cool. Like, even from Bad Boy days to where we were doing the Not So Street and Biggie, and then came Mace, and then it was Shiny Suit Man, then it was all these different things. All of that stuff Puff was able to make cool. He was able to make it mainstream. He was able to take those things and make them so popular in the culture that it was you couldn't deny him.
Yeah.
He either could see it coming or see the ability to influence the audience.
That was what it
to
was.
Think of that's what it
he
is.
He was able to influence.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when you mentioned Jay-Z before, so to me it seems like Jay-Z's power, because you talked about Beyonce, was around talent and understanding talent. Because then I think of the sports world, and I can't remember, was it A-Rod was one of the first, or who was one of the
Robinson Cano.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the same type of thing. It seemed like his talent is knowing talent and where to get aligned, and then everything.
Exactly.
People would follow him because he knew that one linchpin person to build everything off of.
And he was building a team, I will say. Right. So Jay was building a team. When you think about the tracks he was on, he was building people. Puff was trying to find stars. And that's a difference. And there was a unique factor of all of them. I mean, you said Harlem, you said Mace. Harlem World, Mace, that drawl that he had on those tracks, that first album. I mean, look, he became a preacher after. So it was, but that first album, Feel So Good, Tell Me What You Want, was one of the greatest tracks. I mean, but that, and he had that ability to combine the pieces of different sounds. Correct. Right? You had Total on that track. You had Mace. You brought those things together, as opposed to when Jay was doing it, he was bringing all the guys. Everyone was four people on a track. On every single track was multiple guys. So I think Jay was always looking for that supporting cast.
Right.
Diddy was looking for stars because he knew his own limitations in that sense.
And he would align himself with the star. So Puff, so you can't see what Puff, the difference between Puff and Jay is Jay, with his own talent, was able to do the things he was able to do. Puff had to align himself with the talent. Okay. And in order for him to get his proper shine, his proper, I guess, kudos, it can't be 5 guys on the stage.
Yeah. Right.
Because now you're sharing it. So now you have to go create stars, align yourself with those guys.
It goes both ways.
And run.
It goes both ways because who knows what Biggie would have been without Puff. You just there's so many. I don't know if anyone had the talent, but I bet there are thousands of people that have had what Biggie could have been, but would have never done it without Puff finding that.
Puff put, no matter what people say about Puff Combs, no matter what, Puff was able to put people in positions to succeed. Bottom line. No matter what
he took care of his people, from what I heard too. Faith Hill, he took care of the people that were there. He took care of them.
Yes.
What was your experience with dealing with him directly? Was he collaborative? Was he a guy that took advice? What was your experience with dealing with him directly?
In dealing with Puff, you have to understand that he's a control freak, and everything has to be perfect. Because understanding that there is no tomorrow once it leaves the press, there's no bringing it back. Because people working at Bad Boy is a little bit different than working at most places, because people were looking for failure. They were looking for us to fail. And we were oftentimes successful in spite of ourselves.
Really?
Because absolutely. Like, come on, Puff had the whole trial in the early 2000s. The new Club New York trial.
It could have gone downhill quick.
Direction, right? Then we got the Ciroc deal. And that breathed new life into everybody around 2008.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, Ciroc comes around, and Puff goes to Diageo, and he's like, give me the dustiest thing you have on the shelves that nobody's buying, and watch me make it hot.
And that was when you were in the middle of just the club decade, man. And those clubs, and Ciroc was a club brand. You were at every club, and honestly, first, I'm just sad that those days don't exist to the capacity they were. I was just a club kid. I used to sneak. I've been to the. You know how many times I used to go into the tunnel when I was a kid back in the day?
Really?
I would hear Funk Flex say tunnel, and I'm like, going. Oh, dude, My parents, I had one friend's house I would sleep over that they'd be like, you can do whatever you want. So I'm like, tunnel. So we would go into the tunnel. It was me and this little Filipino kid. He was 5'3" at most, showing up a tunnel. I swear to God, it was.
Those were the days.
It was the days, but that
you slipped under the
genre. The genre, dude. Honestly, the only thing I've known about life is if you act like you're supposed to be somewhere, no one's ever going to bother. No one's ever going to bother you. No one will ever bother you if you know what you're doing. And
that's actually how people live their lives.
It works, man.
Act like you're supposed to be here and nobody will deny you. When you're on the red carpet, act like you're supposed to be on the red carpet and nobody will ask you why you're here.
And no one will ask. You just walk, put your head down, smile, walk through, and you are fine. Yeah. But it's a shame to see those club days go. And I remember everyone would say, Ciroc, it was the hottest thing on earth. It was the first vodka that was that premium that you were seeing bought at those clubs. And even in Vegas, when I was early in Vegas, you're talking $600, $700 a bottle they're selling it for, right? You don't want Smirnoff. There's no sexy story behind Smirnoff. You want the sexy. And the next brand, and that launched coordinated with Patron, which was the other brand that was associated with that just party lifestyle. That's what you were pouring out on people. Like that's
the secret. We cheated the Ciroc Club experience. So what we did was we created this thing called Ciroc Boys. And at that time, there were DJs who rocked the mic.
Yeah.
So if you're in Vegas, it's Mauricio, it's Flex, it's Sus One, it's DJ Self, it's all these guys. It's down here, it's Entice. We hired all those guys and made them Ciroc Boys. So now whenever you're in the club, their job, Diageo paid us to pay them to say, Ciroc Boys, hey everybody, I'm drinking Ciroc. So if the DJ's screaming Ciroc all day long,
it's influencer marketing before influencer marketing existed. You were doing influencer marketing, but it seemed like it was part of the shtick.
Exactly.
Like you were just doing it. If the DJ was screaming, then it has to be real. Yeah. It's part of the shtick. I mean,
it's part of having a full campaign and a plan versus just trying to advertise. And I think that's
having a plan.
You know, I'm going to get back for a second, but so many random acts of marketing and things that people think it's just about the ad. It's just about the message they're putting out. There's so many more things that go into it.
You put the message out, may or may not resonate.
Yeah.
But if you do the things that you do and you do them grassroots, you have a better understanding of what the people want.
Yep.
And you can give the people what they want.
It's a great point.
So if we're hiring Fab and he's got a drink called the Coco Loso because Fab is called Coco. So, Fab is called Loso. So his name is Carlos. Fab's real name is Carlos. So we had a drink called the Coco Loso, Ciroc, mixed with pineapple juice. Simple as that. But everybody loves
the oldest concoction. I mean, literally hundreds of years old is a pina colada. So
what's old is new again.
But what's old is new again.
So which was Ciroc to begin with.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And you put it in his videos, and he walks around and he's attached to it, so he's vested in it.
Another one of my favorites, by the way. Fab, oh my God!
Oh
Keeping
man,
It Gangsta, oh my God!
Yeah,
that first album was another one. That was just, you're talking probably late '90s now, early 2000s, right in that. He started doing a little too much crossover stuff towards the end, but that first album was one of the, I can't deny it.
He became the R&B rapper.
Yeah,
so the collab game became so easy for him.
Yeah, I liked it before that. I liked Nate Dogg on those tracks, the old stuff. That was just me.
You know, but one of the things, and I go back a couple of times in my career. And there were times when we were bringing out something new, or we had just bought a company, and we didn't have a lot of money, but it was, whether it's old is new again or something brand new. And we had to take that, I call it guerrilla marketing approach, because there wasn't a ton of money. I actually think you can be more creative, you can think things through than sometimes when you've got an established brand and you've got an established budget. And I think sometimes people get very conservative and don't take those opportunities. So maybe talk a little bit about that, about doing something off the cuff, whether you didn't have the money or did, but the fact that you could
made it look off the cuff, or made it look off. I think it was strategized, but you made it look off.
No, absolutely. Yeah. But because you had to have a little bit of that guerrilla marketing thought to it, but you had a well-defined plan. I mean, you already mentioned one with the Ciroc Boys, but maybe another.
And then moving into, I mean, just the way hip-hop has done marketing as a whole has changed the format.
For sure.
It's taken, because you got to remember, when hip-hop was first coming around, the budgets were small, because nobody knew if this thing would ever be able to live on, right? So it was always, okay, we can do this for you for right now. Let's keep it minimal. We're giving you a 3-year deal. So it's like, you know, all the sports athletes right now, they don't want the 3-year deals no more. They want the 10-year deals because they want the longevity and know that they're here. But if, in fact, you get that 3-year deal, you know, 1, you're up for another. 2, you have to show and prove during this one.
Right.
So
keeps
now
keeps that fire going.
You keep the fire going, and you're throwing caution to the wind because every day is like McDonald's is not going anywhere. There's no difference between McDonald's and Burger King and White Castles except for marketing.
No.
That's the deal.
And those guys, let's make it clear, those guys, most of those guys in that era were coming from the crack game. They are coming from a spot where they do not want to go back to that world. They're coming from prison. The throwing yourself, investing yourself, it can't be understated that this is not like today where you're just some viral sensation because you grew up when you're with money from your parents. These guys were trying to get out of something which made that fire amplified so much more. Or to not get into it. Like when you're young, to keep yourself out of it. That's what I think one of the greatest parts that's untold about hip hop, and I think the same in the sports world. It kept people out of trouble. When you can commit yourself, and I know that even in Atlanta, and the guys and Andre and Big Boy say it, that Dungeon family, those guys getting together kept them out of other trouble.
Would you rather be in the studio or would you rather be in the streets?
And it's an unstated thing, and I think it's unfortunate that's not stated. It's one of the things I love about sports. When you talk about if you get a kid 13 years old and he's a basketball star, that's going to keep him out of trouble more than just about anything else is. Because one, he has a passion for it. Two, he's got coaches and mentors in it that say that to him.
Exactly. And it's just, listen, at the end of the day, it's about being in the best position to succeed. And like I said, Puff was always able to put people in that position. And through the 10 years, and even moving into the reality world, success is read differently today.
Yeah.
Success is read much differently today. Like, Cardi B would never be the person she is 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because people wouldn't allow her to.
Yeah.
They wouldn't allow her to come from the world she came from, to speak the way she speaks, to do the things that she does.
And they were trailblazers before that. If Little Kim and Foxy Brown didn't exist to pave that path, who had their own stuff. And honestly, for my own money, I take Foxy over Kim. Completely.
This conversation just went left, my friend.
Completely.
I love Foxy, but come on, Nick.
Anyway, so
Foxy
I digress.
Over Kim?
Oh, for sure, without question.
So you
Foxy's
take Jay.
raps,
So essentially, what you're saying is you take Jay over Big.
No, I don't say that at all.
Big was Kim. Foxy was Jay.
Hey, listen to affirmative action.
Okay,
listen to affirmative action and Foxy's track at the end of that, and compared to anything that Lil Kim did, and let's have that conversation. But I digress. What were we saying about?
I'm gonna put Rich on the spot with a tough question, but something that you talked about. A lot of these people have come out of tough situations and brought people with them. You also talked about when we were going through reality how some things got too dark, and we look at hip hop sometimes, and I would say maybe sometimes the vibe around hip hop gets too dark. How do you handle that yourself? About how do we bring people out of tough situations, yet sometimes what both of these medias have done is maybe to seem like it's encouraging the negative side, the bad side.
It absolutely does. It absolutely encourages the negativity and the other side of the world, right? So to get out of that, you have to be a strong individual, first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, you have to understand that this is a means to an end. That you don't have to live within this cycle and perpetuate this cycle over and over again. The reason that you're being visible is so that people can see you and see you move forward. And then that helps the next person move forward. But if you get caught up into your own hype and you get caught up into your own persona, then you will never escape it. And at some point, you will be right back where you started from, because in reality, you never really left. Right. And that's always been the trick to all of this stuff, is to build a team, put people around you that you trust, that want to help you elevate.
Yeah. Athletes too. There's examples of the athletes who've done it the right way and the guys that done the wrong way. I remember Kevin Durant says the best thing that ever happened to him was he moved to Oklahoma City, and there was nothing to do in Oklahoma City, coming from D.C. where you can get in trouble. So most things, I agree with that.
I mean, I love the story of how many people have been able to rise up. Right. It's just that conflict at times, and how do you do more?
But it's not a bad thing, man. The negativity and the darkness also brings to light the struggle that people have, and I think where it gets really scary is when that's repressed and put underground. And hearing it, and again, as a white kid in the suburbs, hearing that struggle, it sounds so stupid, but I felt somewhat more connected to an African American culture. And when I grew up in Queens, it's not comparative. Like, it was just where I was. But you felt, and compare is the wrong word, because then you sound like you're just that dude who's trying to pretend like you can blend anywhere. But you felt more connected than you would have had you never been introduced to that music and to that genre. Same thing with my wife. I listen to Latin music. You know how much more connected I feel to Puerto Rico when I listen to Hector Lavoe. And and you know, my argument with my wife is Big Pun is the greatest Puerto Rican musician ever. I mean, we have that kind of argument, which I think is hysterical. But the point is that bringing that to the light, I think, is always better than repressing it in most ways. When it gets scary is when there's not a platform and a voice for it, and it gets repressed.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think, you know, with brands and sponsors, then it can come back to brand purpose a little bit.
Then when you highlight anything, you show the importance of it. Mm-hmm. So there's an importance in the dark side. That's an important part of life in the culture. The dark side of that is how oftentimes this began. So now you have your cautionary tales, but you also have your success stories.
Love it.
Yeah.
So now you can take that, and now the brands are starting to understand. Listen, at the end of the day, even the worst person in Harlem wants to wear Louis, Gucci, Prada, Fendi, Tom Ford.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, there is a market for that. It's just now what you do to get it.
Right.
So
you're
now
slinging drugs, or you're going to work yourself. You're going to work yourself out of it. Yeah.
So now we have to figure out how we can get to the point where everybody's still has the affinity for those same things, but at the same time, now they've moved on to a place where they can comfortably get them the right way.
No, I think that's a great point. I think there's an opportunity for the brands. I think there's also an opportunity to understand the good that can come out a lot of this. Sometimes it's not all the message. It's not all what's visible to what we're saying.
But times have changed. Times have changed.
Right.
Being able to respond to adversity was not something that people talked about back in the day. Right? When you went to a job, it was, I've done X, Y, Z, and I've clicked off these boxes. Now, my first question to people, tell me when you respond to adversity. Yeah. And you know what? Growing and getting yourself out of that struggle to something is a hiring trait now. That didn't exist. That wasn't acknowledged years ago.
Responding to adversity. We're going to test Rich when we come back. You're listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Nick Constantino with Trip Job, and we are going to continue and have some fun here. So we got home team Brandon Leak here. We're going to talk a little sports. We're going to put Rich on trial here to see what he can do as a sports radio host, see what knowledge he knows, and see what he can do. But first, since we have home team here, and we just finished our segment on hip hop, we're going to throw it out there. Top 3 hip hop or rap songs of all time. Think about it, boys. I'm gonna do mine first, and I'm gonna do 4 because I wrote 4. And if I don't say the 4th one, I'm gonna kick myself. So I have in a row. This is in no particular order. I have "It Ain't Hard to Tell" by Nas, "Can't Knock the Hustle" by Jay-Z, "Party and Bull," I can't say that word on radio, by Biggie, and "Put It On" by Big L. Those are my top 3 plus 1 of my favorites. So home team, I'm gonna go to you. You look like you're pondering.
You're a DJ too. Rakim. The God MC.
Wow. Bro, I was born in 82.
All right, I'm a little older than you.
I was a little past that time. And if for my money, if I'm going to go back then, I'm going Big Daddy Kane, just personally.
There you go. Okay. You put me on the spot. If you put me on the spot,
give me 3.
I'll give you 3. Let me go with "I Ain't No Joke" by Eric B. and Rakim.
Love it.
Let me have, you got to go with a Biggie song. So let me go with "Juicy" for the party crowd. And then third all time, is this a matter of significance or just what I like? Because
what you like, bro? Just keep it what you like.
I like some Outkast, so I'll go Southern Playalistic.
The best one there is.
That's the one.
The best one there is. Richie Rich.
This is difficult for me because there's so many, man. There's so many. I'm obviously gonna go "Juicy."
Okay.
There's no way you can go without that. Me being a bad boy guy and all. I'm gonna go big. "Party" and, well, you said "Party" and BS, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
We know what it means. I think we
all
put it across.
And I'm gonna go. I want to go Nas, but man, now I'm having recency bias because I just heard the M and J.
Renegade.
Yeah. Renegade.
That's a track.
I heard it, and
that's a good track. M kills that thing.
But then I want to go back, and I'm a Reasonable Doubt guy. But there's so many. Yeah. And then obviously I just hosted a party with Ra at Monticello recently.
Okay.
So Eric B. and Rakim, even though they don't rock together no more. I'm gonna have to go with.
You named 5. You're good. Okay. That's fantastic.
I can go on, man.
I can do it too, honestly, and I love the conversation.
We could go the entire time.
Wait, Trip, do you have 3?
I'm gonna have. We're gonna have Sam. I would probably have to go with Juicy, and I'm an Outkast fan too.
There you go.
So I'll leave it at 2.
I'm gonna leave this. Yeah. So, and again, this is a complete random statement, but by the time when I was growing up in New York and then DC, people would say, "Don't play Juicy," because it was played in every place in America too many times. Yeah. It was like Biggie's got such a track. Please don't play Juicy. Then they realized that was probably the only track you can play without offending everybody in the room. We're not playing "Give Me the Loot" in the middle of a club of that day. It's just not quite the same thing. So.
All right, so we're going to test Rich a little bit, and since we got home team here, I mean, what better? We've been talking seems like all season about where the Hawks are. What do they need to do? What's going on? Rich? What do you think, man?
I have my opinions.
Bring it.
I knew this wasn't going to work. I knew bringing in Murray from San Antonio was not going to work here. I know Trae Young. First, we've just realized that Trae's a coach killer. Have we not just realized that?
It could be double homicide if you want to put it on him. That's 2 coaches right there.
Just give me the loot, baby.
Yeah.
Give me the loot.
So now you got Trae. John Collins doesn't want to be here. Hasn't wanted to be here in some time. Atlanta was destined for failure. And bringing in Murray, who's a 1, to come in and play with Trae, who is... Trae is selfish. Let's call it what it is. Yeah. Trae's a selfish basketball player.
And selfish people can play defense when the stakes are high.
Or not take 36-foot shots when you're down double digits trying to make a comeback.
Murray was the opposite player. Murray was the guy, fundamentals, 6'8", 9" wingspan that can play defense, was not pass first, but made the right pass at the right time, didn't need to shoot the 3 ball. So you brought in competitive guys to compete for the same spot. And who do you put in when the pressure's on?
I always go fit. And I could have told you that the Murray Young fit wasn't a great fit. And Collins being here and not wanting to be here is still not a great fit. Johns hasn't been wanting to be out of here for the last
there's too
3
much
years.
overlap everywhere. Kongwu too. You got too many guys overlapping to do the same things.
Well, the question is, what's the vision? And if the vision involves blowing it up, you got to start all over. If you blow it up, you can't get a good coach. Does a good coach want to play with Trae? So those are a lot of pieces.
You can't blow it up, man. You put so much, you rested so much on this. That Luka trade is going to dawn you and dwell on you for so long. You can't blow it up. I don't see that being the option. I mean, you have the pieces where you could certainly do it, but do these fans, are they going to come to the games if it's not a team there and there's not a star there? Are they going to come? Anyway. I've seen it when I first moved here, the Celtics, they were in the playoffs against the Celtics, right? It was that team that with 4 All-Stars, 6 All-Stars. I can get tickets for $10 for the first game of the playoffs. That should not be happening, man.
Yeah, you can put out Trae Young, you can put out Mike Vick, you can put out Jay Smooth, you can put Zaza and Neek, and people go see it. If there's no show to go see, you're probably not going to go see it down at State Farm Arena.
And that arena, which has all the shine on it.
What's the vision? Is the vision to build a title team, or is it to just put fans in the stands?
We want to win a title. That's what we want to do. We'll see if
the fans do.
Bringing a coach in is what's most important right now for Atlanta. Bringing the right coach in. It has to be, as much as people don't want to bring in Udoka, I can't see Atkinson. I can see Udoka commanding the respect of Trae Young.
You need that.
My friend, we're not shooting 36-footers 5 seconds into the shot clock.
Yeah.
We're going to do this the right way. Quinn Snyder, maybe. I'm a big Quinn Snyder fan. I wanted him to be the coach of the Knicks before they hired that prehistoric guy they got up there now. But with that being said, Atlanta has to figure out how they're moving forward, and they have to find a coach that can command the respect of the locker room that's going to get Trae to play basketball the way it's supposed to be played.
Yeah, and
He's not Steph Curry.
No.
He's not Steph Curry.
No. He hasn't built his stature. I remember Steph Curry was tiny when he moved in. His shoulders got broader and broader. Trae doesn't either. His body's not built that way, or he doesn't show
Steph's
the desire.
There's a totally different. I mean, I'm a Davidson guy, so I know I've been with Bob McKillop.
If you watched him
mentored early on. Plus, he had his dad. He got mentored by, and he still talks to McKillop every week. You know, and so there was a completely different mindset.
I'm just saying body type. It's easier to defend when your shoulders broaden and you can play defense because you're of stature. Trae Young doesn't look like his body has the ability to grow. He's just the same size as he was.
No man born from human womb will be Steph Curry.
But this is the thing about Steph that people never give him the credit for. Psychologically, Steph is so secure with himself. That Kevin Durant can come play with him and Steph still be secure enough in himself to play basketball the right way.
Daddy helped
Trae Young that's not how it
Del
goes.
Curry helped that. Daddy was a good shooter.
Absolutely.
His dad was a good shooter and knew his role on every team he played on, which made him a better player.
One funny stat, before last year, Steph Curry was the worst shooter in his family. Del Curry was a 40% shooter. Seth Curry was a 42% shooter, or a 43% shooter. He shot 42.
Steph shot more in one year than all
We're going to go volume.
Exactly.
We're going to go volume.
Yeah. What do you think about the Atlanta Braves? Braves have a whole lot of star power. Ronald Acuna Jr. You got Ozzie Albies.
Ozzie's my guy.
You have a good manager. Just coming off of a World Series a couple of years. What are your thoughts on the Atlanta Braves and their chance to go into World Series? Might be facing off against a team you know about, New York Yankees in the World Series, if that goes to point.
The Braves are in. Well, the problem with the Braves right now is that you guys are in the ridiculous division. The Mets just spent a crap load of money. You know what I mean?
And they had to rescind some, and they're still about to get slapped on the wrist.
Are you a Mets guy, a Yankees guy? What?
I'm actually a Yankee guy.
Okay.
I'm actually a Yankee guy, but I'm a big fan of the Braves. I have a little bit of history with, obviously Dave Justice was down here, Raffy Furcal was down here. Those are my guys. Acuna's my favorite baseball player. Second to Soto. Him and Soto will go neck and neck because I just think that they're young stars on the rise and they're changing baseball and making it so fun to watch. And I hate that I hope that Ronald got hurt and he had to sit out so long because it took him a little bit of time to get back into the swing of things. And now being, with the playoffs having come, I think he would have been a much better player had he played the whole year. With that being said, Braves minor leagues, you got to have people coming up. I don't know, 6 top 100s I think you have right now. Those guys are ready to take the next step.
Which is crazy to think about with how many people have come out of that team with Strider and Harris and how many guys have Riley. I mean, you're talking the ability.
Austin Riley's a beast.
And that's how they built the first team.
And how many guys they traded.
Let's do that. We're going to keep this going. We're going to keep it going on the podcast, but we're going to wrap up the show. You've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. Let's keep the Braves talk going on the podcast version.
Did you guys pay Swanson?
No, gone.
No, he's a cubby.
Okay.
But you knew that was coming.
Yeah.
The difference between and Grissom was not high enough that you would pay. And again, for all it's worth, I mean, I heard it was 6 errors I think Swanson made last year. That's worth something, but it ain't worth the $30 million a year that he wanted to get. And he still had Freddie's same agent, so I think there was still some bitterness. And I know his agent too, and I know the guys underneath the agent. And
if it frees up money for Fried, then I'm okay with it.
That's another decision down the road the Braves will have to deal with.
Because outside of Strider, they have not put any money long-term in the pitching.
In the pitching rotation.
If the Mets keep spending, the Braves will be spending $250 million before you know it anyway. So it doesn't really matter. There's no cap. There's no limit to it. The luxury tax, all that stuff doesn't matter anything. It's going to be a spending spree until some point where it plateaus and it starts going backwards. Yeah. And is it the right people? I agree with Home Team. Is that the right move? Not when you got young studs coming up that can pitch the way they do. I think you need a 1, 2, and a 3 in baseball, and then the 4 and the 5, you should intent on swapping them out every year. I just think it's just realistic to do it that way.
And right now, you got a young Spencer Strider. Hopefully, Stash, bro, if he continues that, strike it out, people. He's your youngster for the future. But, yeah, you have to put some money in the pitching if you want to stay on top. And the Braves look like they want to stay on top.
You hope Kyle Wright will be a long-term, but he hasn't done it but 1 year. So you don't know that yet. So Fried is your one option
Max Fried
to have somebody
is the big money. Is the next big ticket coming out of Atlanta.
You got that but you expect a roller coaster. There's very few guys that are that consistent. There's too many variables in baseball, and who knows what's going to happen without the switch too. I mean, you're going to see. My bet is that works in the favor of the batters. I would have to imagine that's going to work in the favor of the batters. I've seen some harebrained schemes of how they're going to fix the switch and how they're going to align people, and the infielders are going to come in. But that also throws this whole thing off because guys that may have looked better might now look bad because where the guys can hit the ball.
Well, Kyle Wright is a ground ball pitcher sometimes, and so he's a Vandy guy. How does that help him without the shift?
That's an interesting question, and how it helps, the defense as well. We were talking about, you have a lumbering type of first baseman now that there's a shift that he won't have to hit into. Maybe he's able to get a few more hits because the shift won't be there. And defensively, the bases are bigger, so guys who are faster are going to try to take off because they have more room to get to the next base. Yeah. How important will the catching position be now moving forward?
I think it's good for baseball. Let's call it what it is. I think you're speeding the game up. You're making it more appealing. You're doing things to go after that younger audience. I think that you're going to have the heritage people that are going to be like, I don't want to see this. I can't believe it.
Everything doesn't have to be trajectory. The whole...
And that screwed up baseball. You're right.
Trajectory thing.
Exit velocity and trajectory.
Now you can put the ball on the ground and you can start doing some things without the shift.
Yeah, which is ironically what more traditional baseball used to be. So maybe those rules, what they think are going to make it skew to a younger audience, will maybe make it more appealing to an older audience. So who the hell knows?
Baseball has become strikeout home run. Strikeout home run.
Yeah.
Now you can put the ball on the ground and do some things. Without the shift, you can send it up the middle without your third baseman playing second base.
And I completely get it, because watching baseball on TV, you want to see the home run. But have you ever been to a stadium, especially in the playoffs? It is so much more exciting to watch small ball when everything is something you jump out of your seat.
First to home is just as exciting as home run.
You got to get them on base and do some things.
It's amazing.
Now station to station sucks.
Yeah.
But getting them on base and doing some things is fun.
One of the Braves' most exciting plays is Ozzie first to home.
Yes.
I mean,
well, you know the helmet's coming off.
Yeah, I know.
Helmet's coming off. And the biggest thing, I think, all of this, our attention spans have changed.
Yeah.
So seeing all of that, home runs, station to station, in 2 hours and 45 minutes or 3 hours is not what you want. If you can do this in 2 hours and 15 minutes, like they do with the NBA, it's a perfect way to get your entertainment and get your day and your family time in, as well as I don't have to be here all night.
Yeah, now they just got to fix college football and stop those 4.5 hour freaking games, and we'll be on to something.
Stopping the clock after every first down.
We got your Falcons shirt on. Let's talk Falcons real fast. So we finish the trifecta here. So obviously a lot going on with the Falcons. I think their trajectory is in the right direction. I think you got to figure out quarterback. I don't know what they're going to do there. I think you got Pitts and London, who are a good 1-2 combo. I think you needed another speed guy. I think you need another guy who can get down the field, take the top off the defense. But what do we think about the Falcons?
Well, I've done my part. I prayed, and I prayed some more.
Fields or Lamar?
I've done my part.
Fields or Lamar? Who are we praying for?
Well,
there's like a pipe dream. Fields with the Georgia connection. I don't know, man.
There's an interesting question. You had a chance to draft Justin Fields. Do you look at it down the road? If you had Justin Fields 2 years ago, you would have had a bad team he's playing for, like he is with Chicago.
Sure.
Now you're coming out of the darkness, and you have a better team. You have Drake London. You have Kyle Pitts. You have Tyler Algier.
You don't have to change the offense that much
from
Mariota.
The offense. Do you go back and do a do-over, or is there something that they just don't like about him, and they figure out that they can get around it? I think what the Falcons are doing, they're trying to build a team and then insert a quarterback once the team is built up. They don't want a quarterback to kind of come the way up the ladder and then just have magic happen, and then you have to pay your quarterback $300 million.
That's kind of the way they did it with Matt Ryan. I mean, a lot of it was there when they drafted Ryan.
He was very lucky. He came into a team where there were veterans and he had a support system. This is all young guys coming up together.
I don't know if I like that, man. I watched that Panthers Thursday night game. It was one of the worst games I have ever seen in my life. And I know you have to establish the run, but there's something about spreading the field out and making moves and getting these guys open that I didn't see the Falcons do one single time. And I know what Arthur Smith, I think you need to have, I think the word, when you talk about, you need the right culture on a football team nowadays. I think that all these teams have proved it. I think that the Bengals proved it, and a guy can change culture. I think he's trying to establish a culture of who they are.
I think you mentioned a lot of things except for one, defense. We have tried for, I don't know, ever to win football games with offense. Steve Bartkowski, Mike Vick, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Tony Gonzalez, Roddy White. How about some defense for once in our lifetime?
What do you think, Rich?
The Falcons. You obviously need a quarterback. I don't know that you go after Lamar Jackson. I think that you should. I'm a big Justin Fields fan. I think that what he did in Chicago this past year was insane.
With no receivers,
no running back, just him by himself. He runs for 1,100. He throws for 2,200, 2,300. The Falcons have offensive pieces, but like you said, you need an edge rusher. At this day and age of the NFL, edge rushers reign supreme. You need to put some pressure on the quarterback.
At the end of his career, man, he gets good pressure. He's a great player. But if that is your guy getting your most sacks, you're in big trouble. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I think right up front, I would look at can you even move up and get kid from Georgia, the D-line.
Jalen Carter?
Right, yeah. Can you get him? And then you can get an edge rusher in free agency. Right. Typically, you can get that.
You always overpay for an edge rusher in free agency. Yeah. You always, if you look at the stats, you always overpay for those guys.
But can you get the pressure up front? Help Grady out. Get an edge rusher. All of a sudden, they become more effective.
You need a second quarterback.
But getting Lamar Jackson eliminates all that. Getting Lamar Jackson eliminates that. That eliminates. Yeah. It helps your defense. It keeps them off the field.
Yes.
But you pay nobody anymore if this guy is really sticking to Deshaun's contract and he wants $250.
You have no draft picks. You're done right there.
I'm thinking They want a little bit better defense. Arthur Smith knows he wants to run the ball, and he's got his massive pieces in Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Those were his guys, top 10 picks, and now they need to figure out if Desmond Ridder is going to be a placeholder or if he's going to be replaced or if he's going to be the guy if he can develop. But I don't think – I would be shocked if the Falcons got Lamar Jackson and paid him the $245 million he's looking for after coming out of salary cap hell for the last 2 years. I think they're going to be prudent. They're going to try to build a defense. They're going to add a couple of offensive linemen, and then they're going to try to see if the quarterback can get it done. And it would be nice to have Justin Fields be a part of this. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger.
I think Lamar personally would enjoy playing in Atlanta. I think we would embrace him quickly because Baltimore is a tough place, man. The Harbaugh brothers, both of them, it is a tough place to play. They're used to winning. I mean, it's just a different kind of beast. I think Atlanta will embrace him so fast. The question is, does that go to his head too quickly? He showed the skill set, but he's also showed he could be really bad too.
He'd be Mike Vick 2.0.
He could be really bad also. So do you have the assets to put the pieces around him to make him thrive? Because that's one of those decisions. It ain't going to be middle of the road. It's either going to be the best decision or the worst decision the team has ever made. That's what scares me about it.
Do you think he would help you win a Super Bowl, not be an elite quarterback, not be somebody who have you there? Do you think he would help you win a Super Bowl? If you think the answer is yes, then you do what you need to do to get your hands on an MVP. If you just think he's really good, but he does have some flaws, we didn't come this far and be this broke and have our credit this bad with the Falcons after losing Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and that crew to take a roll of the dice.
Does 12 games a year do it for you?
And there you go. And there it is.
Does 12 games a year
I mean, now's the time. The NFC South sucks. Now's the time. I hate to say it. But if ever there's a time to make that impact, now's the time.
But to your point, does 12 games do it? And what are you going to give up in order to do that? And is one person, even Lamar, going to make you ready? Because you're going to give up so many assets. I just don't see it. I think you're going to give up too much.
I think they hit him with the first tier franchise, the $32 million franchise,
which is a good number for him for one season.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
But they didn't hit him with the 45, which means that they might be ready to let him go.
Which is a bad number for them if they want to keep him around.
The one thing I remember, I swear to God, it's about why we used to have Shaq up here all the time, and I asked Shaq, why do players not want to play here? And he simply said, because all their baby mamas are here. And that's why people don't want to come to Atlanta. And honestly, it was the most real thing I've ever heard. And I've had 2 or 3 different people support that statement. That's why people don't want to come play here. So who knows? Who knows what the issue is? But why can't we get the stars? Why can't we get people that come and want to stay and make that impact? I don't know the answer. Home team, you got a quick closing on that?
I know what prayer can do. And I think we're on the right track. I think defense, though, needs to be addressed, and I think you don't need to reach. It's not a reach if you have done your research and you think somebody is going to get you to the Super Bowl. If there is any doubt, you stay the course, build through the draft, accumulate free agents, and then see where the chips fall because the NFC South is changing.
Yeah. All right, this has been fun. Hey, thanks so much, home team. Rich, thanks for joining us. You've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3.
Tonight in Arkansas, there's a mother tucking in her daughter and turning off the light. A business owner is burning the midnight oil. An at-home dinner date is plating up possibility. And it's all happening under one roof. How? The power of a conversation, like the one John from Integrity Solutions had with First Horizon Bank about his vision for a sustainable mixed-use building. Now it's not just words, it's life. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/John. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.